it is misguided to think that language and world have to share something in common in order for one to be able to represent or talk about the other. And that's where the famous notion of language games comes in. In the later work, Wittgenstein thinks language, in a certain sense, is self-contained. It gets its meaning from the rules of the game, and those rules are not themselves answerable to reality. So just as a game of chess works because they're the rules of chess that constitute the game, and you can only play chess if you have some grasp of the rules. What a chess piece is, for example, is defined by the moves that the chess piece can make in the game of chess. And he thought that was a good analogy for how words work. Words don't get their meaning from latching onto objects in reality. Rather, he thought words are tools, and they kind of work like pieces in chess, in the sense that what gives a word a meaning is how we use the word in language as a whole, just as, say, the particular chess piece is a pawn because it can move forwards one square at a time, and occasionally when you start it can move two. And what a pawn is constituted by the rules that apply to how the pawn can move. And similarly, what gives a word a meaning is how it's actually used in the language. We don't need to appeal to anything outside of language, bits of world that somehow play this meaning-giving role in order to understand how words work. And that's not to say that Wittgenstein is disconnecting language from the world. He's not saying we can't represent things in the world anymore. Of course we can. That's still a primary function of language. But meaning isn't given by bits of the world. By the meaning of tree is not the actual, a particular tree that the word refers to, but rather how the word is used, namely to refer to trees in general. But if I thought, for example, that an actual tree were the meaning of the word, well, then, of course, my language would be quite limited, because if that tree is cut down and doesn't exist anymore, then the meaning would die with the tree. And obviously we can talk about stuff that isn't there. That's one of the cool features of language. We can talk about things that don't exist. We can talk about things that have ceased to exist, etc. If these words only had meaning because particular objects stood for these words, then we'd have a problem when these objects stop existing.